All right. So, purpose of the research changes. Also, the role of the researcher changes, depending on kind of what paradigm they're coming from. So, in a positivist paradigm, the researcher believes they are neutral and value-free. Right? Think about that in terms of like objective, as she's mentioned earlier, right? Because there's one truth, and I'm going to discover the truth by quantifying these things and figuring out what the relationship is, and therefore I'll be able to predict this forever, right? What are your reactions to the positivist paradigm saying that the researcher is neutral and value-free?
I agree. Only because I feel that you're saying that one thing is true. So I don't see how you can be neutral if you're just saying that there's only one truth here.
Okay.
That's how I take it.
Okay.
I also agree, but for me it's more of like human nature and like your natural, kind of going back to like your framework and all of your
The elephant? The paradigm epistemology?
yeah, of like what your worldview is like. You know, I just feel like it's impossible to do. It's almost impossible to do something without having some sort of bias.
Yeah.
But I think whenever you're researching it, like, this reminds me whenever I was taking consulting and I had a really hard time with solving the problems because I had like that bias to what I thought was the correct answer. But when you're doing the research, I mean, if the answer's right there, maybe it's not one that you agree with, but it is the one answer, the truth, I guess, that it is. So you can't be biased to it because it just is what it is.
So I'm going to jump off of that, and I'm going to say, well, if I'm discovering truth about a phenomenon, most likely it's because I'm collecting some sort of data, right? That's going to be objective and going to tell me what the true answer is, right? But how did I decide which data to collect?
You have to think of what you want to find a lot of the time. So I'm going to keep looking until I find what I want to find, or it shows that I'm right.
There is value or bias, I hate that word, but there's value in determining what did I even measure, because positivist paradigm is usually a measurement. How do I decide what to measure?
What? How is there value in your what you measure when the true value is the measurement itself?
Because if I'm looking at the gender wage gap, what are some things that could contribute to the gender wage gap?
No, like straight up gender and wages. So like from a true positive, I mean, I don't know, I kind of love that positive thing.
Oh, I thought you would. I thought you would.
Because I mean, yeah, like you said earlier, in that interpretive section of it, you know, there's ways to kind of consider all these different things, but then you've already taken yourself away from the truth, which is wages and gender.
Okay, so if wages and gender is all that matters, if I were to study that, there would just be that one answer, right? And then everyone would be done.
Right. From the positive standpoint anyway, because all the other values that I may hold, which is individualistic, you may hold, she may hold, he may hold, right? That's all in the interpretive part of it. So you've already gone out of the positivist realm from where I see it anyway. So it doesn't matter what.
So how do you, in the positivist paradigm, respond to the fact that the gender wage gap exists? How can you, so you would say the prediction that you would do is that whatever the relationship is between gender and wages, that's it. You wouldn't consider anything else in that equation.
You would have to, from my interpretation of it, you would have to just consider those two things and the proof and the pudding, numbers, right? Facts, data, that's it. You know, the process, what is it? You know, the spin-offs take you into a whole nother role of the research.
Okay, let me ask you this. How do you measure wages?
Income coming in,
salary. In what? How?
Dollars.
Dollars per what?
It depends.
Okay, so already that's a judgment you're gonna make.
No, not
Yeah, it is. Because I might do it hourly, you might do it yearly.
Well, even with an hourly or an annually or biannually, semi-annually, whatever, it all adds up to one thing. Lifetime, so you can all add it up. Whether my presentation of the wages is a bi-weekly presentation and yours is a monthly, guess what? If I add my bi-weekly, it's gonna go up to your monthly, right?
No, it depends on who we studied.
But the wages are the same. You see what I'm saying?
Nope,
If we
because
were-
it depends on who we studied.
No, that's interpretive. Now we're spinning off again. If we-
No, you can take it from a positivist paradigm and you're gonna say, I did this. So you would have to survey everybody on the planet. You would have to know it from everybody.
That's a true positive. That's the extreme positive.
She created paradigms.
No, that's like a way extreme. But on a smaller scale of it, any researcher and any research project is going to depend on who you sample or research. That's along those lines. But there's no standard as far as the truth is the truth, right? The gap exists. These are the wages that are made. This is a measurement for the wages. Those things have to be standard, right? But like you said, if I survey these people, you survey those people, you're not going to actually be able to get an accurate, positive role of research on gender wage gap because you would have to survey every
Person on the planet, right?
gender. And there's so many different ones now.
There's that. There's also that. Which falls.
Kind of recognize, that
Yeah.
not been recognized before, so that kind of skews your chance to get accurate data because you don't have as much.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting. So in your opinion, the researcher can be neutral and value free.
Oh yes. Almost like, how I live my life.
Neutral and value free?
Yeah, so such a devil's advocate, I will agree with you 100%, but I'll argue you to the ground on whatever the other aspect of the life.
She's been doing this since 2016. I'm
Even before that. Apple pie is my favorite. Coconut.
Yeah.
It just depends.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I personally.
Yeah.
There is a way to be completely.
Others agree with her? Yeah.
So, I mean, I agree with her, but like you were saying, that like there isn't, like if you were to interpret data or interpret what you wanted to research to find your data, like you would have to be biased, like it's gonna be your biased opinion. I guess what
As in terms of what's important to study, right?
So like in my view, although I agree with her, I think like if you were to be vague in your data collection, as in you find more data than even what you are actually looking for. Like if you were to measure race and age and all these other things, you may land upon a truth that you weren't necessarily looking for.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's more consistent in this age group
Mhm.
than that. I don't know.
No, yeah, to expand just the study variables of that.
Like even if my study is about like age and the gender wage gap, like if it's more prevalent around this age or that, but if I looked at like, I don't know, different places or different races, like, yeah, I mean, I know that research is already out there, but like even in different contexts and different research ideas, like the more vague you are and the less you should be looking for what you're looking for, but the less you concentrate on that and you try to find other things or put other measures, like you might find something that you weren't
Other things that you weren't looking for. Yeah, it happens.
Sense.
That's for sure.
Right, especially if you think about when the questions develop when you're asking your participants in the study or whatever. You know what I mean? Like when you if you're looking at it from the point of view as, oh, I'm gonna collect information from a certain group of people. If you create specific type of questions, like kind of like what you're just saying, and you sort of almost throw them up by asking them a wide variety of questions, then maybe you can use infer what is true.
So even just deciding on which questions you're going to ask and to whom, I think there's some judgment there.
In positive, there's no questions to ask in deciding. It's all, there's no qualitative. It's not about how it's just facts, right? That's my interpretation. Am I wrong?
Yes, but a lot of positivists will use for instance, survey methods to collect that data.
How's that positive? That totally goes against it, right? Because your sample and population and all that's subjective, so that's not quantitative, that's qualitative, that's not.
No. There's a lot of quantitative data that's collected via.
The data-
Oh, wait, whoa.
data
Is this
quantitative,
the argument we had in 2017?
The data, the survey, right?
Yeah.
Word it is. But I mean, the information you get in your survey can be quantitative, but the process of surveying itself is qualitative right there. So you can't be positivist if you're doing a survey. It's about data, right?
But where does that come from?
The true definition of positivist.
Where does the data come from?
In a research role of a positivist, it will come from maybe, I don't know, numbers that have already been generated or posted or published. I don't know that.
At some point, though, somebody had to be.
Yeah, somebody has to collect it, but how did they collect it? You know what I mean?
Someone had to collect it. Someone had to provide it. So you had to ask people.
No, not really. You can go on IRS and, you don't have to ask anybody. You can just, like, when I think positivist, and I'm talking about gender wage gap, I'm talking like straight facts, what's been reported to the, Internal Revenue Service, not me asking you, do you think the wage gap exists? Why is it about that? How much did you make? What about your husband? That's all. That's not positive anymore. Now you're going somewhere else. Positivist, what's been reported, what's been allocated, what's being counted toward you, and what can be,
What about the U.S. Census Bureau? The census? That's a survey, but wouldn't that?
That's not, I don't think that's positivist.
I don't think that's
There is a
No,
way.
because I can identify myself as something I'm not. I can misrepresent myself, or I can not be counted at all.
It's just lying.
You do that with the IRS too.
True, but it's a little bit. True.
That's not. We didn't record that.
Well, that's a fact.
I did it.
Yeah.
Could you say that one more time?
Yeah. So I just
Sorry, I apologize. I'm stopping.
No, you're fine. So I have a hard time with thinking of a person as being neutral or value free. So when we talk about the role of the researcher, that is the goal in the positive paradigm, and that's what a lot of people that subscribe to that paradigm would argue. I have a hard time with that because I just believe that there's no way that you as a human intervened in that and can still call it value free and neutral. Okay. The interpretive paradigm, straight up, the researcher is subjective, right? Again, because there's multiple truths to be discovered, right? And so that interpretive researcher can see truth over here, which looks different from truth over here, which looks different from truth over here. A lot of times when you read interpretive researcher, the researcher will say, hey, this is the lens that I looked at this problem through, right? So I myself I belong to this community that I'm studying, or something like that. They will tell you what their subjectivity is so that you can then read their work knowing that that's the lens that they were looking through, okay? So positivist, neutral, value free, interpretive, absolutely outright subjective. The critical researcher is often an observer, a participant observer, looking around, noticing things aren't right in the environments that they work in, live in, play in, that kind of thing, okay? So they're usually part of that environment or that phenomenon in some way. And they usually are trying to serve as a catalyst for change. That's their goal, is to change the inequities that they see around them, okay? So in the three different paradigms, we have different roles for the researcher. Okay. Any other thoughts on this role of the researcher?